everybody, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to check out a game that I have been jonesing to get my hands on for a very long time, ever since I first played it at a Proto-Spiel event a couple years ago. And that game is Scoville by Ed Marriott and Tasty Minstrel Games. Look at the beautiful art on the cover of this. Very excited about it. Scoville is a game about planting and harvesting peppers and using those peppers to sell at market or in a chili cook-off competition. So you're trying to have the best, spiciest peppers at the most opportune time in order to earn the most victory points. And you're going to do so by moving around a board and harvesting these peppers, planting peppers, and all types of various things. So real quick, before we just get too much into that, let's take a look at what comes inside of this box. We'll see how the game plays, and then we'll come back here at the end and we'll get my opinions on Scoville. So here you can see the components for Scoville all set up for a 4-player game. Before I get started on how the game works, I want to just mention the component quality and artwork of this game and how fantastic they are. You can see that we have excellent artwork out here, reminiscent of Belfort, probably because it's done by the same artist, but then also this really, really well done production quality in which you have these kind of punched out boards here to hold these little pepper meeples. These pepper meeples, which come in all types of different shapes and sizes for the purposes of the game. You can see red, purple, blue, yellow, brown, and even ghost pepper. Now, on top of the different colors, they also come in different heights to help you differentiate between what pepper is what. What might be a level 3 pepper, the taller peppers, versus a level 2, smaller, and then 1, even smaller than that. They kind of help you determine the rarity and distinguish them from the other peppers on the board. So all in all, just very well made game. Now let's talk a little bit about how the game plays. The idea of this game is that you are a pepper farmer in the town of Scoville, and you are trying to harvest the hottest, spiciest peppers in order to sell them to the market, which can get you victory points, money, and other peppers. You're trying to put them into the chili cook-off to make the spiciest chili. The spicier the chili, the more victory points it will be worth. You can see up here the Phantom Nom 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 chili is worth 24 points, whereas the No Mild Left Behind chili is only worth 3. Or you're trying to plant them early in order to get victory points, because the first person to plant a certain type of pepper will get points towards the end of the game. So you want to be the best pepper farmer, making the spiciest peppers as early as possible and as best as possible in order to get victory points. Well, how are you going to do this? Each player starts the game with some money. You can see here that I have $10. You'll also start the game with some peppers. You start with one each of the 3 primary colored peppers, and you start with 3 tiles. These tiles let you break the rules of the game. One will let you move an extra step during harvesting, one will let you plant an extra pepper during planting, and one will let you double back once, which you're usually not allowed to do while moving your meeple and harvesting. If you use these, they help you move stuff in the game or do stuff in the game, but at the end of the game, they're also worth 4 points apiece for each one you don't use. At the start of the game and at the start of each round, there will be an auction for turn order, and you can see right now that we have green in first, orange in second, blue in third, and yellow in fourth. But these will slide up, and there will be a blind auction for turn order, each player taking some of their money that they have into their hand, closing it up secretly, and then all revealing at the same time. The highest bid will get to choose where in turn order they're going to go. Now, they may choose first, or they could choose anywhere from first to last. The reason they may want to go later is different phases of the game will be played in different orders. With the planting phase, putting new peppers out onto the board, going from first to last, but the harvesting phase going from last to first. And then fulfillment, which is turning in peppers for points and different things, will go from first to last again. So depending on what you're trying to do on your turn, you may want to go at different spots in the turn order. So let's say, for the sake of simplicity, that everybody bids and stays in the same turn order. Then we would move on to the auction phase that's going to happen each round, or the post-auction phase, I should say, in which players are going to get to choose one of these cards up here from the different auction areas. There's a morning deck and an afternoon deck of cards. Right now we're using the morning, and these can change dependent on different situations in the game. You may switch to afternoon if a certain number of cards runs out. That would be this deck over here. Or you may switch to you may skip the afternoon if a certain number of these cards run out. If there's less cards than there are players in the morning, then the game will simply end after a specific point, and you won't go to the afternoon. So it all depends on the timing of these cards and how quickly they're jumped on as to whether or not you will have an afternoon phase. But that's kind of a little bit too much detail. Once everybody's got their turn order, in turn order they're going to choose one of these cards, and these cards will give them the associated pepper. So if you need a red, you can take a red, or a blue, or 2 oranges. So players are going to choose these in order and get the appropriate peppers. We'll say that green chooses red, and the other players choose blue, orange, and orange respectively, and these will all go away. Of course, none of them being left over, and then more will come out later. So once we're done with the auction, we're going to go on to planting. How planting works is that each player, in turn order, first to last, is going to take one of their peppers from behind their board. These will all be hidden behind a player board. And they're going to plant that pepper out onto the field. Now, it must be orthogonally adjacent to one of the peppers already there. So, for example, the green player could plant their red pepper right there. Perhaps the next player decides to plant a blue pepper right here next to this one. And then we have the two players who took orange, but one of them still has a yellow. They decide to plant their yellow right here. And the other one decides to plant their orange right here. Now, when they plant this pepper, they actually get a benefit. They are the first player to plant an orange pepper, which is not one of the basic peppers. And they look down here to see if any of these shields are left for orange peppers, and there are. There's purple, orange, and green. So they can take this, and it's worth 2 points at the end of the game. They get it because they planted one of these 3 types of peppers. A purple or a green would have given them the same thing. The next player to do so will also get a plaque, and so will the third. But they could be either purple, green, or orange. It doesn't matter which one. It could be the same player who plays it again and gets another one of these plaques worth 2 points at the end of the game. You'll note that there are also plaques for planting brown, white, black, and phantom peppers, but you don't have access to these just yet. They could come through cards that you'll get later during the auction phase, or they could come from planting and harvesting peppers, harvesting on the harvesting turn, and getting new breeds of peppers for moving between the field in the appropriate manner. We would then move to harvesting, and we see that green doesn't go first in harvesting, they actually go last in harvesting, so yellow is going to get to move first. Since this is the first turn of the game, they're going to take their farmer meeple and they're going to set it out onto the board in a way that they are either oriented facing up or facing down, and they'll start moving from this position. They get to move up to 3 steps, moving along the different paths, and a movement would be moving from one of these little center dot areas to another one that is directly adjacent. So for example, one would be to there. Or you could take that same movement and you could use it to go from here to here. Each time you move between 2 different peppers, you're going to get a new pepper, potentially. These are all outlined on this chart. Now, I know this looks like a ton of information, and it is a ton of information, but let's just say that I moved between a yellow and a red pepper, for example, like this. That would get me a new orange pepper, and I would take that pepper, adding it to my supply. If instead, I moved between a blue and a red pepper, I would find blue and red and find out that I get a purple pepper, and I would add that to my supply. So you'll note that you take 3 steps. Maybe my first is between this yellow and this red. My second happens to be between this yellow and nothing, which would get me nothing. And my third happens to be between the yellow and the orange. So I'd go find yellow and orange and find that that gives me a brown pepper, a new variety that has not yet been available. Once that player is done with their 3 steps, the next player in turn order, in this case blue, would take their harvesting, starting from the same position and moving their 3 steps. So perhaps they move here to get a orange, and then they kind of are stuck a little bit. So maybe they won't go that way. They'll instead go this way to get a purple, and then they will go this way to get what it would be 2 blue, because blue plus blue makes 2 blue. On their third step is not really going to get them much of anything because they can't move between 2. And we would continue on in this manner with the orange player and then the green player moving out on the board to get new peppers. After they're done with that, we're going to go on to the fulfillment phase. And in the fulfillment phase, you can do one of 3 things, or actually all 3 things if you would like. You may fulfill one of these market cards over here. You'll see that this one wants 2 red peppers, and in response you'll get a brown and 2 money. Different ones will want different things. So we can see here that this one wants a purple for 5 money. So you can try and turn in your peppers in order to get better peppers or to get some money, which you can use during the auction phase. In addition, you can fulfill a recipe if you have the appropriate peppers, turning them in and getting victory points for the end of the game. Finally, you can sell peppers you have from behind your board. When selling peppers, you may sell up to 5 peppers of one color from behind your board. And the amount of money you get per pepper is equal to the number of that colored pepper on the board divided by 2 in terms of dollars. So in this case, a yellow pepper would be worth $1. So 5 would be worth $5. If there were 4 yellow peppers on the board, a yellow pepper would be worth $2 a piece, or 10 for 5 of them if you sold all 5. So you can sell. You can, of course, turn them in for different stuff, or you can turn them in to make a chili recipe and get points for the end of the game. After you finish that, and of course all of our players will be out on the board somewhere like this, and after you finish that, you're going to move on to the time check, which will determine if you move on to the afternoon, if the game ends, or what happens. So if it's the morning phase, and there are fewer of these wanted cards than there are players in the game, you'll move on to the afternoon, clearing out these wanted cards, putting out new wanted cards with different peppers on them for the afternoon, switch out the auction deck at the top for the afternoon auction deck, and basically prepare for the afternoon phase of the game. If there are fewer of these recipe cards than there are players in the game, you'll play one more round of the game and you'll never have an afternoon phase, scoring after that's done. In the afternoon, if you have moved from morning to afternoon, you're going to keep playing until there are either fewer market cards or fewer recipes than there are players. If there are fewer market cards than there are players and fewer recipe cards than players, you'll end the game immediately. But if only one of the two is depleted, you're only going to go another round and then end the game. So there's different scenarios which will either see you with extra rounds, extra phases, or see you ending the game very quickly if you happen to deplete these recipes super fast. If the game has not ended, you're going to go ahead and start with another auction phase. You'll of course replace the cards that are here. You will get ready to do your blind bid, reorder the turn order, and start all over again. First with bidding, then taking cards, going ahead and planting your peppers, harvesting, and then fulfilling first player to last player again until somebody manages to trigger the end of the game in one of the ways that I've previously talked about. When you're done with that, you're going to get victory points for all the things you have done on your market cards. For example, these ones here, the little flames. All of your recipe cards, which you've fulfilled over here. Each one of these placards that you've happened to pick up. And each one of your special tokens that you haven't used by the end of the game. In addition, you're going to get 1 point for every $3 you still have at the end of the game. And the player that manages to have the most points through all of these various factors will be the winner of Scoville. Well, there you have it. That is Scoville from Tasty Minstrel Games. Now, I want to give a slight disclaimer here. I did play this game well before it was published, and even before it was picked up by Tasty Minstrel, with my friend Ed Marriott, who is the designer of the game. I had a chance to play it at a Proto Spiel event, and I've played it several times since. And it's a game that I've been looking forward to for a long time. So I wanted to let it be known that Ed is a friend of mine. I've known about the game for a long time, but that doesn't change the reasons that I'm excited about it. It has nothing to do with the fact that Ed is the designer, although he did do a great job designing the game, but more with the fact that it's just an excellent game. There's all types of strategy in this game right from the beginning with the auction, determining whether you want to go first in turn order, last in turn order, or somewhere in between, because it has something to do with your planting, whether you want to plant early, or perhaps in the reverse you want to harvest early, or again back from first to last, whether or not you want to fulfill things first. So you have to figure out what your objective is for that turn. Then you proceed on to moving around and planting your stuff. First planting and then moving, of course, to harvest. Where do you plant and how do you plant effectively so that it's good for you and not as good for everyone else? Likewise, in reverse order, how do you harvest so that you get the peppers that you would like to have in order to plan for fulfilling or planting in future rounds? And how do you stop your farmer out on the board to best mess up everybody else's move? Because, as I failed to mention in the video, you cannot move through or land on somebody else's farmer. So there's kind of a blocking aspect to that portion of the game. Fulfilling, you have to pay attention to what everybody else is trying to do. You have to pay attention to who has what peppers, whether or not they're competing for something that you might be trying to fulfill, and really just how best to use your peppers. Do you want to sell them at the market or put them into the chili cook-off? Maybe you want to save them and plant them in order to get some of those placards that give you victory points for planting a specific type of pepper. All types of things in this game require a lot of strategic forethought, and you really have to pay attention to all aspects of the game, which is something that I love in a game, and so I'm really happy to have this one around. Now, as you might be able to tell, my verdict on this is going to be overwhelmingly positive. I don't really have anything negative to say about the game. The components are excellent, the art is wonderful, the gameplay is strategic and fun, and it has a unique theme. So overall, very happy with this one, very excited to have one of the early copies, and I can say without any type of hesitation that if you're a fan of games or my reviews and you like the type of game that I like, Scoville is going to be one that you'll enjoy. So check this out. It should be hitting the United States relatively soon. If you've already pre-ordered it, great, and if not, check it out. If it sounds like it might be interesting to you, that's Scoville from Tasty Minstrel Games and Ed Marriott.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in style.